The Rio Grande River. The Rio Grande is located in the United States of America and Mexico. It runs from high up in the Colorado Mountains right down to the Gulf of Mexico. Along the way, it forms most of the border between Texas and Mexico. This is an extremely important part of the Rio Grande as a river due to the high security that is needed between these two countries. In comparison to the rest of the world, it's a very important river for a range of different aspects. As mentioned earlier, it serves as part of the border from around the town El Paso all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. However, this isn't the most important feature of this river. This is one of the most heavily guarded rivers in America or even the world, alongside its close neighbor, the Colorado River, which runs the opposite way down, then through Mexico and into the Pacific Ocean. As this river serves as a border as well in a lot of the area it runs through, many people in Mexico see it as an opportunity to get into the United States without a passport. This has made this river much more heavily guarded than most rivers, which does affect some aspects of its functioning as a natural feature due to some of the restrictions the governments have put in place. For example, larger fences stretching larger lengths, personnel at various points along the ground patrolling certain areas, and other features. Here are a few maps that range from a global scale right down to a local scale. So you can see that this is just where it runs from. This is up in the Rocky Mountains, and this one's a little bit more detailed. The river system. The location of the Rio Grande begins in the Colorado Mountains, then runs downstream while being fed from other tributaries along the way to the Gulf of Mexico. As mentioned before, the location of the Rio Grande is very important for a range of reasons. Its water is a source for humans, agriculture, and a natural source for wildlife. Another reason why the location of this river is important is because it's fed by so many different tributaries and rivers through its course. One larger tributary that feeds the Rio Grande is the Pecos River. This river begins near the headwaters of the Rio Grande, in fact, and follows its tracks all the way down till its confluence with the river where it's serving as the border as well. The length of the Rio Grande is enormous, as it has to stretch in two countries, and as there's many user groups as well. The river stretches 3,051 kilometers, and with it being this long, it makes it the 27th longest river in the world. The catchment basin is far larger than this, and is 471,900 kilometers square. The tributaries that are part of the Rio Grande are enormous, but the principal ones are Pecos, Devils, Chama, Puerco, and Puerco rivers, located in the United States, and the Conchos, Salado, and San Juan, which are located in Mexico. There are a huge amount of tributaries in the Rio Grande, and there's a list on the Wikipedia link at the end of the slideshow. Although these are the important ones that basically feed the Rio Grande right the way through the United States and Mexico. The Rio Grande gets replenished mainly by flows from the Rio Conchos, which pushes large volumes of water down the river. The significant feature that I've chosen is the Rio Grande Gorge. It's located in New Mexico, where the watercourse follows a tectonic chasm, which basically means it's easier for the river to cut down into the rock beneath and erode, because it's a meeting point for two tectonic plates. Therefore, it's easy for the river to down cut. The process that is taking place here is erosional, and you are able to see in the photo the sheer amount of rock that the river has eroded away. And it's used to run the level of top horizontal line, which is this one here. This is where the top was. Top horizontal line. Yeah. The formation of this feature is also very interesting, because it's able to tell us about the properties of the river possessed when it was in the middle of its progress. This isn't a meander, so there's no cut banks here, but what it does tell us is that the velocity of the water passing into this section was quite high, seeing as it would have to had the power to collect, carry, and erode the rock from the bottom and sides of the river. As you can see now, the river has become small and narrow, suggesting the volume and velocity of the water has decreased dramatically. But as you may already realize, the damage and erosion that have both caused has already shown. As already explained earlier, the location of the Rio Grande Gorge is in the state of New Mexico, near and through the town of Taos. It runs from the northwest to the southeast of Taos, and the depth, just south of the Rio Grande Gorge, which I'll explain in a minute, reaches 240 meters deep, which equivocates to about 800 feet. The Rio Grande Gorge Bridge is located 16 kilometers northwest of Taos and is an enormous bridge, which spans the width of the gorge. In this picture, you're able to see the distance it spans compared to the width of the gorge, just here. The use of the river. Some of the users that I have found out are the fishermen, transport animals and other wildlife, farmers who may use tributaries or some of the water that's come in, border patrol for parts where the river doubles as a border, and populations of the United States and like Texas, New Mexico, and in Mexico as well. The Rio Grande is used by a huge range of user groups throughout its course, from the Colorado Mountains to the mouth of the river in the Gulf of Mexico. The river for starters is an essential life resource for animals and other wildlife, because without it, the animals around the part of the two countries won't have a water source. They have also recently put in miles and miles of fencing in the border sections, which is beneficial when it comes to homeland security, but extremely destructive because it cuts animals off from their water source and sometimes can alter their habitat altogether. The Rio Grande also plays a big role in transport when it's much wider than a couple of meters. In the parts that aren't patrolled by the police, the river is used a little for transport. One of the biggest users of the Rio Grande is in fact us. With the river running through 3 states in America and Mexico, and including the tributaries and distributaries, the river has a large user group in the United States, and as it moved into Mexico, that user group changes as the tributaries that are in Mexico, but are used by some of the water that has to flow into the Rio Grande. Some of the tributaries I'm talking about are ones like the Conchos and the San Juan, which I mentioned earlier. There have been reports of farmers using some of the water from or running into the Rio Grande for their own farms. These farmers aren't nomadic farmers because they have established properties with fencing and access to the river. The relationships between these users are complex, seeing as they all have something in common with each other. The user group of people rely on the transport on the river to get them up and down. The animals and wildlife rely on us to not build and construct fences and other boundaries that may cut them off from vital sources of living or their natural habitats. And as you're able to see in these pictures, this is pictures of the border patrol that operates up and down mainly Texas, between Texas and Mexico. And yeah, so this is just some of the security that is there. The management of the river. The Rio Grande has some forms of management that are set out to that are guidelines set out to as what people are able to do and what they are able to do around the river. Some of this management includes the water distribution, amount of people who have access to the river, how much water should be taken out of the river for other uses elsewhere, and etc. Some organisations that are helping the Rio Grande with various policies are ones such as the Rio Grande Regional Advisory Committee, which was formed to link shareholders along the whole river, including both sides of it. Another important feature of the management of the Rio Grande is the native communities that live alongside the river, near the New Mexico portion. Their knowledge of the river dates back thousands of years, and this knowledge is thought to improve policies protecting the river and to maintain its sustainability for generations to come. And this is a map of a management plan that is in New Mexico, near Albuquerque, and if you can see Albuquerque, it's just up the top there. But yeah, so the red line, can't see from where I am, but yeah, the red line shows where they're trying to manage it a bit more, I guess. Conflicts. There have been a few conflicts involving the Rio Grande, but one of the more recent and major ones is the water wars occurring between the United States fighting over the use of the Rio Grande's water. With drought still occurring in many parts of the United States, water is a scarce resource and it's causing havoc among farmers as there just isn't enough water coming through. Texas and Mexico are in an ongoing dispute about New Mexico supplying enough of its neighboring country, Texas, or if it's using too much, which is as a result diminishing farms and other users in Texas or further downstream. This dispute, however, may be decided by the United States Supreme Court, and it's with it being such a complex case. Some potential implications of the conflict is that maybe Texas isn't getting as much water as it should be, and this will take effect on farmers, crops, cattle, and livestock, but also other human aspects in Texas. A potential way of resolving this conflict sounds quite simple, and that is to make sure that New Mexico and Texas are getting a shared amount of water from the Rio Grande. Sustainability. Some of the long-term challenges to the Rio Grande is what resources does the environment need to remain sustainable in the present and the future, but how humans have affected the river over history and how to accommodate these incursions. Humans have a large impact on the Rio Grande over time, have had a large impact on the Rio Grande over time, and that's why these sustainable policies have been put into place. An important thing to understand is that these policies and plans aren't to solve the problems, but to try and encourage a more sustainable environment for which the Rio Grande passes through. This is the bibliography of the websites and places that I've used, and thank you for watching this presentation.